Good morning. Thank you for letting me call in remotely. My name's Megan Brousseau. I'm the Associate Director of Inland Empire Waterkeeper, and I'll be really brief on our descriptions, but I wanted to just give those in the room an idea of who we are in case you're not familiar with us. So we're a environmental nonprofit. We're part of the California Coastkeeper Alliance and the National Waterkeeper Alliance. The president of our National Waterkeeper Alliance is Bobby Kennedy Jr. I always make sure to lead with that so that people can understand kind of the framework of where we lead from, and that is from the legacy of community service that the Kennedys have instilled in our organization. So we have 5 pillars that is education, advocacy, research, restoration, and enforcement. What education looks like for us is, and if you can advance to that education slide, we try to educate the public holistically and do a comprehensive program that will reach all ages, all socioeconomic groups within the region that we serve, which is millions of water users. And so some of our leading programs are our River Cats program. That's kid activism through science. And that is where we take Title I schools on completely free field trips. And they do water quality testing at the river. They visit treatment facilities. They learn what a watershed is, what their watershed is, and their place in it. And they're empowered to become stewards of that watershed. We also have a very unique and extremely impactful program called River Camp, where we take children and we put them in the Santa Ana River for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week during summer, and we do 3 weeks of that. It has grown every year as people begin to spread the word that we have this amazing resource in the Santa Ana River and that it's safe and swimmable. And so for every kid that pays to go to that program, a child goes for free. And what that does is really bridge the gap and use water and nature as the great equalizer between some of these socioeconomic and geographical barriers out in the Inland Empire. And finally, we do have Little Seedlings Nature Preschool, where we're creating water stewards from the ground up, quite literally. Another pillar that is extremely important and has a nexus to this group today is our research and restoration. And so we have a stream team of what we term citizen scientists. However, most of these are graduate students or recent graduates, mostly environmental sciences, geology, and biology majors. And what we do is test for E. coli and fecal coliform and all nutrients in multiple places of the Middle Santa Ana River and Lytle Creek and other bodies as needed. And so with that, we kind of create a checks and balances with the existing testing programs that are going on, for example, with TMDL Task Force, on which we sit on all of the TMDL Task Force in the region. But it gives us a second database, an independent base. And when there are spikes or reasons for concern, we will then, in addition to using our in-house lab, send those samples out to state certified labs. So sometimes our students release a white paper quarterly, sometimes it's yearly. It depends on who we have on tap, but what we always have is a solid body of data, and it's going back over 4 years now. So that's something that I think is extremely important, not only because we use this on our Swim Guide app to let folks know, the water quality in real time, issues in real time, but it helps us keep the powers that be accountable. It helps us be able to lead folks where they should be recreating and where they should not be recreating, and it helps us to zero in on non-source point pollution issues. So after that, the next slide should be advocacy. Well, I'm sorry, I'm skipping Crest to Coast. So part of that research and restoration, Stream Team is our research, but with restoration, We lead community cleanups and also corporate cleanups where businesses can come out and use it as a team building opportunity. And we clean trash out of the Santa Ana River and its tributaries. To date, we have removed over 106,000 pounds in the last 4 years from these tributaries in the middle of Santa Ana. But we're not just removing trash. Because of the great support from Eric Burez, really, and the state board, we've created an organization that's armed with rapid trash assessment and other programs that will allow us to not just clean up the trash, but to go in before every cleanup and inventory the trash. We know down to the brand name what trash is there. We know redeposit rates and times, and what this gives us is an educated trajectory to try to systemically fix the pollution issue. And what that looks like and means to us in the real world is that if we have, for example, 3 sites that we're cleaning up, and one is in San Bernardino in the main stem, and another is in Mill Creek, which is fed by Rancho Cucamonga, and one is in the main stem in Riverside. We're seeing very different types of trash there, and we can look at the data that's created by the rapid trash assessment to hone in on what the problem is. And so, for example, in Mill Creek, we were able to see that largely this was industry dumping from subcontractors of housing that was going up. And we can then, and also, it looked like, it seemed from the data that there was dumping from landscapers and perhaps some citizens that either can't or think they can't afford the dumping rates. Whereas in the main stem of Riverside, we didn't see any of that dumping, illegal dumping really. What we saw was storm drain pollution and recreational pollution. And so because of rapid trash assessment working together with the bacterial and water quality data, we're able to go to decision makers and say, for example, to Rancho Cucamonga, you've got a problem with illegal dumping, and you don't have, in Ontario or Rancho Cucamonga, a great program to let your rate payers know that they can go dump for free once a month, for example. And then over in Riverside, we see that we don't have that issue, and we can attribute that to a 30-year, very well-publicized and well-ran program called CURE, Clean Up Riverside's Environment, where they make sure that their ratepayers know when and where and how they can dump for free. So we've been able to use rapid trash assessment and the water quality data to lead municipalities to share with one another, giving that CURE program over to these cities that didn't have it, trying to roll that out to systemically stop the illegal dumping, and at the same time being able to say to a city who's successful in that platform, you're not successful in your storm drains. You're not successful in your recreational trash. And so what can we do here to help you with that? And because of that, it's led us to have bilingual outreach for Leave No Trace at recreational sites, and to work with the city to have bilingual signage, which you'll see in the slide about advocacy. So really what we're doing is trying to create a very holistic, systemic way to identify these problems and empower and partner with municipalities to fix those issues and to educate their constituencies to be better stewards of the water. So with advocacy, that, you know, really what's splashy about advocacy is when I'm standing before a city council until 1 in the morning on Earth Day, trying to get them to recognize that maybe changing a green space, multi-species protected habitat area into high-density housing for 1,000+ houses with horses is maybe not the best idea in the middle of Santa Ana. And so you'll see that as advocacy and us fighting sometimes what we see as being really water quality damaging. But it's the flip side, and we do that, but the flip side of advocacy is the very next day after an unfavorable ruling, going in and working with those same city councils to figure out how we can take a situation that might not be the best and make it the best. And getting that same city council to add trash cans and bilingual advocacy and signage and restrooms and things like that to mitigate the increase in recreation and runoff that we're going to see from that, decision that they've made. Advocacy is also everything we do in education. It's really just giving people an understanding of their place in this watershed and the issues, and then empowering them to make the right choices. And finally, enforcement. We do enforce on the Clean Water Act. We test during storm events, and we litigate. Never to embarrass, and we don't keep any of the proceeds. We litigate strictly to try to bring people in compliance and allow those that maybe were the worst actors to become the best practice people, which happens time and time again. We end up giving tours of places that we've previously sued because we've worked together and they are now the industry standard and something to be proud of. So that's what we do. And where we come into your work is mainly with that stream team and this knowledge of what's going on really arose the issue of homelessness and how detrimental, 2/3 of that 100,000 pounds is homeless related. And so we were asked by Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority last year to conduct 2 symposiums. So the first symposium was conducted in June of 2017 in the city of Riverside. And what made this different was the fact that we, from the get-go, advertised and let people know that when you send somebody from your agency or organization or office to this, you're coming knowing that our goal is to show the water sector, not that we can or should, but that we must take responsibility in ending homelessness in the watershed. And as I'm sure all of you are thinking right now, that's a pretty provocative thing sometimes to say to, for example, a regional board or a flood control district or a private water company. And so that was our aim, and we weren't really sure how people would accept that, and we found ourselves with standing room only, and we really had an impactful event. We had people from our regional board. We had people that were homeless living under the A sign in Anaheim. We had ACLU attorneys. We had service providers and homeless shelter directors. And I think that every person left that room more willing to accept the responsibility and with a better understanding of the fact that we don't really have a choice, that we have to accept that responsibility. And so we followed that up in December of 2017 in Fullerton, at the Fullerton Library, in the height of the turmoil in Anaheim and the evictions and what the county was going through. And again, even with all of Southern California on fire, quite literally at that time in December, droves of people came out. And Supervisor Josie Gonzalez came from San Bernardino, the czarina of homelessness in San Bernardino. And she made a very poignant speech from the audience. We didn't even know she would be there. And she conveyed to us that she truly believed, with her 30 years of knowledge and experience in this region with homelessness and water, that the answer to homelessness was in that room with the water sector. And so with that and her support, where you'll see on the next slide that we're going, well, before that, there's Clean Camp Coalition, so we might bounce around a little bit, but I would like to go first to the conference, to that last slide. We will be doing a full-blown 8-hour conference, most likely in October, but the date will be announced very soon. It's going to be in fall, and it will be at Cal State San Bernardino. And our partners on it are the Water Resources and Policies Initiative Group at Cal State San Bernardino. And we're calling this a conference, but only for lack of a better term. What we're really aiming to do is to create a regional work group to recognize that we're on the cusp of really great changes in all 3 counties, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange County, with the new hiring in many of these counties of homeless czars, czarinas, point people. We've got regional groups like the Interagency Coalition for Homelessness in San Bernardino that have been working very hard. Everybody is on the cusp of launching these big programs. And so our goal here is to get behind that curve and coordinate everybody's efforts now, and to take what is working and what's launching and share it so that we're not playing whack-a-mole along the river and just pushing problems back and forth. So that's the big, broad goal. But if we could flip back one to the Clean Camp Coalition, our organization in particular is taking the lead based on that first symposium. We had a keynote speaker named Chris Brousseau. Now, Chris was a rock star volunteer from our brethren up at the Russian Waterkeeper, and this young man was not a paid staffer. He went out with himself and another volunteer, and he was doing cleanups like ours, where we go out with the clean camp, where we go out with Crest to Coast, and we clean up in sometimes big homeless encampments. And he realized early on what we did not catch on to until we heard him speak. And that was that we needed to, instead of trying to clean up the trash after it's been left behind by an encampment, we should be trying to circumvent the trash from ever being deposited in the river in the first place. And so what he started was a program that I would encourage everybody to Google on your own time and look into it, and that is called the Clean Camp Alliance. And what he did was start homeless outreach, basically. When he would talk to these fellows and these people experiencing homelessness in his river, they would explain the difficulty in getting their trash out of there, just logistically. And it occurred to him that we all have weekly trash services, and there aren't any for these folks that are living in the river. And so what he started doing was handing out trash bags and saying he would be there Tuesday at 6 to pick up the trash. And it worked. And here I was boasting with my paid team that we had removed 100,000 pounds of trash in 4 years, and he's removed 200,000 pounds of trash in 2 years with volunteers only. And when you see his before and after shots, his befores look like our befores, and his afters look like responsible campers. Now, we were inspired by this program, but we knew that we have very different watersheds. We have very different political climates and geographical issues. And so we will be rolling out the Clean Camp Coalition here in Riverside in 2 weeks. But what we will do slightly differently is that at every single point of contact, we will have resource providers that are ready, willing, and able to take individuals out of the river and place them in homes that moment. And so what this will look like on the ground is a first rollout of outreach. We're going to hand out reusable canvas backpacks that have the information of our program printed on them. And inside those backpacks will be trash bags. And we are doing a pilot program within the Middle Santa Ana River that uses the levee system to avoid very complicated differences that switch back and forth in management and municipalities and governance throughout the Middle Santa Ana. By using the levee system, we only have to be partnered with the flood control district, which we are. So when we go out for initial outreach, we will have providers with us. We will have skilled workers that were formerly homeless and are now working through the City of Riverside's Riverside at Work program. And we will hand out these backpacks with this information that not only says put it on the levee no earlier than this time, no later than this time on this day, but it also gives resource numbers. And when we hand those out and tell them about our program, we will have a provider ready to take anybody who wants to go seek housing that moment. And when we come back to pick up that trash, every single time we will have providers that are ready to place people that moment. And so it is a pilot program. It is tricky. It has a lot of moving pieces, but we have partners at the County of Riverside Park and Open Space District, the City of Riverside, Rivers and Lands Conservancies, and Flood Control. And we're looking for more partners all the time. And this will be a pilot program, and it goes hand in hand with the fact that we will be doing water quality testing before and after every encampment that is mapped for this program. So we will have water quality data to go along with these outreach and trash collection efforts so that we might be better able to create a picture of what this did and if it was successful in reducing bacterial loads or changing the health of the water and how many folks were placed. And we're hoping that, you know, after, we're going to do it in 3-month segments, but we're hoping after a good half a year of this that we'll have enough data to guide us to grow the program and bring on more partners and to try to alleviate the homeless issue that way while alleviating the trash issue in the process. So with that, I will ask if there are any questions.
And thanks so much, Megan. That was fantastic.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm so sorry. I love to be in a room with you guys when I'm trying to explain these kind of crazy ideas sometimes to some folks so that you can really understand where I'm coming from. So I hope it comes across that we have done our due diligence. We're in that river on so many levels every day. We're in that river and that riparian forest testing water. We're in that river teaching students. We're in the regional board offices. We're in the city offices. I feel that we have a comprehensive knowledge of our river and the issues. And while homelessness is not in our mission, it is intrinsically involved in water quality right now in Southern California. And so for now, we will step up and take that lead.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could send Eric and myself information on that homeless conference that's going to be in October so we can share it with the listeners for this group, that would be great.
We would love to. We would love to. I would really hope that everybody could commit to sending a decision maker and a worker bee, because that is how this will actually come to fruition. And knowing that when you send that decision maker and worker bee to this one day, you're going to be leaving that day with an important role in this regional work plan for the next year.
Megan, can you touch
Yes.
upon the point time count? That's usually in January, is that correct?
What was that? I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
Point in time count.
For some reason, you're breaking up a little bit.
A point in time count?
The point in
Yes,
time
so
count?
the point in time count. So that was in December, I believe, this last time. And there's a reason for that. So the point in time count is done in December because it's a national movement, and in most geographical locations, it's so cold that folks are seeking shelter, and it's easier for them to count them. So for the point in time count, I really feel that it is imperative for groups like ours, for water agencies, to get involved in leading work groups of the point in time count. The point in time count needs to look different in this region and in Southern California than it does nationally. December is probably not the best time to really get a good grip on how many folks are out there. But because of our river and our tributaries being so remote, groups like ours are the only ones that can lead these folks down in there to get a good count. So we did participate this last December, and it was a great experience. But what it really showed us is that it's a great program, but for what we're talking about in this river, it's woefully flawed. There is no way from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. in 3 hours to gauge how many homeless are in even a 1 mile stretch of the Middle Santa Ana. We went down with our group, and we brought law enforcement and point-in-time people with us, and we could see visually 50 camps, and we got to maybe 13. And when when it hits 10 o'clock, you're instructed to go on back. And so I understand the constraints of the point-in-time count, but I feel like it needs to be different for us in this region, and it needs to be longer and a more intense on-foot effort.
Megan, this is Jen with Humboldt Baykeeper. I have a quick question. How many staff people do you have working on this, like the actual implementation of the project?
For Clean Camp Coalition, we've got 2 paid staffers, myself and my programs director. And we have 2 paid interns from the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority's partnership program with the Cal State system. So there's those 4. And then we have a partner at Rivers and Lands Conservancy, has a staffer on this project with us, which brings it to 5. And then we will have probably 2 employees from the City of Riverside's Riverside at Work program to help implement it, and then a resource provider. So you've got about 7 people that need to really be there to roll it out, plus a resource provider to be there in case anybody is accepting of help.
Okay, thanks. Really
And it should be noted too that we're also working with researchers from Cal State Fullerton and Cal State San Bernardino who will be conducting listening sessions with us this first round when we go out for outreach, so that they can be getting also some feedback from those experiencing homelessness on what water issues may have led to their displacement. And I want to say as I leave you that I am fully cognizant of the fact that what I just laid before you all is a big bite. And some of it can seem either controversial or too difficult for some agencies and governmental in particular to deal with. And so if you have questions that maybe you don't want to put out right now here, please feel free to call me. You can call me, you can email me, and we can speak very frankly offline about the uncomfortable, not easy aspects of this and where you can still be impactful within the realm of what you're able to do within your organization. So I would just encourage you to think about this, think about the questions that are not so comfortable, and reach out to me with them anyway.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me.
We look forward to your next conference.
Wonderful. I hope to see you all there. Have a great weekend, everybody.